This is March in Minnesota. Welcome to our wonderful state. I mean, you just get so excited and you try to take the patio furniture out, and then you are told, that's not going to happen for another month. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it is crazy. It's just something, that's for sure. Oh, wow. Well, we're in the spring and we're in a frenzy of a spring market, and it doesn't look like spring, but that's okay. We're
No,
used to this. We're used to this.
yeah,
But I thought we'd meet up today and talk a little bit about kind of getting everybody updated about what's going on with rates, because there have been some, economical changes in the environment that I think you want to give some input on.
yeah. I think one of the big things that people really have to keep in mind is we've been in this low interest rate environment. Really, it started in 2008, and rates came down from like five. I had a lot of clients at 5.5 to 6.5, and at that point they dropped to 4.5%. And it was unbelievable the amount of business and activity it created, primarily in refinances at that time, because as
Yeah.
you remember, everything imploded. Um, so rates take that drop, and here we are 12 years later. Who ever would have thought that we would be in rates for a good period of the beginning of this year
Yep.
in the mid twos?
Yep. Yep.
So I've got loans that are closing here this week, a couple of them that are locked in, one client at 2.25 on a 30-year fixed rate. And, so many people think that's the new normal, and it really isn't. So what we've experienced in the last 3.5 weeks is upward pressure on mortgage rates.
Okay.
Part of this is coming from the added government debt. So,
Yes.
you add 1.9 trillion, and I think we'd previously done a couple trillion. What's going to happen is this debt is very potentially going to create inflation.
Okay.
And the feds really work at managing inflation and trying to keep it under control.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cost of goods going up. And the problem with inflation when it comes to mortgage rates is inflation erodes at that for that mortgage investor. So think about it. We all invest in 401ks.
Yep.
You may diversify in bonds or the stock market. So, those global investors out there are trying to decide on a day-to-day basis, where are we going to park our money? Are we going to look for the safety and security of treasury bills, mortgage bonds, which gives a very low rate of return, but it's secure? Or
Mm-hmm.
are we going to be risky and put our money into the stock market?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you're going to invest in a 30-year product
Mm-hmm.
with a coupon rate of about 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So inflation is the cost of rising goods, and I think we've been pretty much around 1.25 to 1.5% inflation. As inflation starts going up, it erodes that mortgage bond. So that investor that's holding that mortgage, they're going to see the erosion of any of their returns. So what happens is, as inflation starts creeping in, there's a fear in the mortgage market. And so what happens is rates naturally start being pushed up from that fear of inflation. Now, there are economics that come with that. So
Mm-hmm.
typically you have a supply and a demand. So either the investors are purchasing stocks or they're
Mm-hmm.
purchasing mortgage bonds and treasury bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a normal supply and demand, if the stock market's extremely attractive and our economy is expanding, rates are going to naturally go up because the investors aren't going to want to buy a mortgage bond if they can get a higher return in the stock market. That's the normal cycle. Well, now we throw in the fear of inflation,
Yeah.
and all these mortgage bond investors kind of freaked out over the last 3 to 3.5 weeks.
Okay.
And I feel like rates kind of artificially have moved up from 2.5 to about 3%
Okay.
in a very short period of time.
Yep.
But the thing I try to really emphasize to my buyers, we are at 3% 30-year fixed rates, incredibly historic
Yeah.
low numbers,
Yep.
um, which create you an opportunity to get into a bigger size house, have a lower payment
Yep.
than when you and I bought our first houses.
Yep.
Um,
hmm
Now, the other thing that'll naturally happen, if and when rates continue to go up, then some clients might look at different products. They
hmm
might look at a 5-year ARM or a 7-year ARM, which will have a lower interest rate.
Yep.
But typically, the first year client, first buyer
hmm
is probably on average going to be in their house 5 to 7 years. So it's just dealing with the emotions of we all marry this 2.5% rate. We think
Yep.
it's going to continue forever. And
hmm
then 3 months later, we finally got everything together where our lease is ending and we can go out and find a new house. You blink and it's 3 1/8, you
Yep.
know. And my job, your job is to just remind consumers, my goodness, these are
hmm
unbelievable rates.
Yes.
They're going to fluctuate until you find a house and you're under contract. You're not going to lock your rate in. So just go find the perfect house. And then we worry about the rates.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of give them that base and that ceiling. Like, hey, they might have started working with you, Brian, at 2.5%. By the time
Yep.
they're under contract, it might be 3.5%. So kind of knowing
Yes.
that basement and ceiling that they can move in
Yeah.
is going to be the best advice you can give.
Yeah.
Buyers today have a bit of a road ahead to finding a property. And any new clients I'm working with, I'm very honest in saying, this could take a half a year to a year to find something. That is
Yeah.
just the reality of low inventory. A
Yes.
lot of buyers in it.
Yeah. We've talked about it in the past, Amy, but I
hmm
had a client that offered 80,000 over list.
hmm
He got it. Then we were concerned about whether or not the appraisal was going to work. It happened to work.
Okay.
Um, I have friends that live in Richfield. They
hmm
just bought a house a year ago at 315.
Yep.
A house sold across the street. It was listed for 345. They got a cash offer at 395. So now her
hmm
entire neighborhood just jumped up to 395.
Correct.
You know?
Right. For as long as this is going to go. And there's such demand, there's such inventory of buyers that I don't see this really settling for a while.
No.
Waiting out the storm, sure, buyers certainly can. That's fine. Just be prepared. It could be a couple of years, or at least a year, for things to kind of settle. And it won't even yet be a balanced market. It might just be a little bit more relaxed because us listing agents, we're receiving 8 to 10, 12 offers on a home. And it's a process. And what's so interesting is when you put on a new listing and you bring in 30 buyers to look at that house, right? They come through 30 people in a day or a day and a half. And then you get the 10 offers and then you pick the one buyer. You release 29 buyers back out into the market. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had clients that were looking at a house in Lakeville 2.5 weeks ago. In
hmm
the first day, there were 200 showing requests.
Jesus.
And the house sold with no inspection, with actually no showing,
Yep.
sight unseen, the house sold.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Yeah. I mean, if a listing agent properly photographs, does floor plans, discloses, and has a ton of material out there, I think a buyer can purchase with confidence, especially the new millennial buyers, because they have grown up online. I mean, to go into a store to buy something is unheard of for them, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
this idea of mobile real estate purchasing is a little bit more understood from them than when I present this idea to a baby boomer. And they're like,
yeah,
what? I can't walk it. I might not inspect it. I'm like, I can't tell you not to inspect, but you know, some of the offers are being accepted without inspections. So, not making it a contingency to the purchase agreement, but a step that you do in the process is something that is very new in the last couple of weeks. Where that buyer will say, "Well, I'll buy the house at X, but I'm not going to do a home inspection. Or I don't. It's not a contingency, but I'm still going to do one."
yeah. I'm wondering, Amy, because you have so many listings right now,
hmm
can you kind of talk us through, as a listing agent, when you've had all these showings and the offers start coming in,
Yep.
what's your process with the sellers of the house on how you evaluate the offers and decide which one is best for you, for
Right.
the client?
Absolutely, because every client has different needs, right? So first of all, categorizing the entire all offers, and the easiest way to present it to someone is really on a spreadsheet. To go and tell 10 stories, it gets very messy.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we will prioritize cash buyers first. Nothing wrong with having a mortgage, Brian, at all.
Yeah.
But that would be a priority because that's one less contingency.
Yep.
Then it goes to price. Then it goes to what are the contingencies? Is there inspection? Is there not? Because that's a huge one. Because you never know what's coming with that one. You never
Yep.
really do.
Yep.
So, and then the big thing is evaluating those buyers that are financing and how they have written their escalation clause is huge.
Yep.
And number two, how they are going to manage the delta in the appraisal.
Yep.
So, it's no longer just, okay, close date, price, and earnest money. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's a whole new ballgame now in the kinds of terms that sellers need to wrap their brain around. So you put a listing on for $900,000 and you end up with a buyer that paid $950. Okay, that's fantastic. You know, that's wonderful. Brian, I lost you. Brian, I lost you. Oh. Well, long story short, I feel bad that he's not here in the screen with me. He'll join. Oh, that's funny. Hold on. Oh, let me see if I can catch him back. Okay. Is really having the right language in a purchase agreement to say if there's a difference in that appraisal, meaning what if the appraiser just comes back and says it's only worth 900, is that buyer willing to pay the difference? Or are the sellers willing to renegotiate? Here he comes. Oh, I lost him. All right. All right, Brian. I'm waiting for you to come back. Here we go. That's awesome. You know what? This is the example of COVID. Like things just fall, you know, kids walk in, you know, the dog starts barking, somebody comes knocking on your door during a live stream, and you got to keep on rolling.
It's all about recovery, right?
God, yes. Oh, that's so funny. But what I was kind of talking about before you left is, you know, just if there is a difference in the offer price and the appraisal, for the sellers to understand what is going to happen at that point, because it's exciting to get an offer and accept things that first day or two on the market. But let's face it, come week 3 and 4 is when the rubber hits the road. We really know if we've got traction because we've gotten the inspection and now we know where the appraisal lands.
Yeah. So previous years, you don't put any verbiage into the purchase agreement regarding the price. And in some cases, I've seen them in the past few years here. If there's a difference between appraised value and the price, buyer will make up the difference. Is it just basically expected that you've got to have that clause into the appraiser that there's no way a seller is going to come back and renegotiate if the appraisal comes in low?
Right. So in our purchase agreement, there is nothing baked into it for our conventional purchase agreement that that the house has to appraise for the price. So, you know, but we all know as agents, let's get this all in writing because as we're seeing people overbid by 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm seeing 12%. Okay, let's get in writing. If whatever the outcome of that appraisal is, here's what's going to happen. Because we don't need days of arguing between realtors. We need a plan to either renegotiate, cut bait, and go back on the market or move forward. So, yeah, so that has to be something that is. the new world. The new world.
So, Amy, can you explain the escalation clause and how
Mm-hmm.
that works?
Right. So oftentimes, if I have a client that's writing a purchase agreement and this is the house, okay? All right, well, we got to do everything we can to get it. Basically, you'd write an offer for, say, your offer's 450. We're going to offer 450, but we will go X amount of dollars over your highest bid. Listing agent, please supply me with these certain pages of the purchase agreement to confirm that that's what the bid is. You know, we want everybody to be honest.
Yeah.
So what that does is it says, okay, I'm 450, but hey, I'll go up to 470 if you have a 470 offer. Plus, I'll give you something on top. You have to make it worth them making that move. So, okay, so my basement is 450. Then I'll go to 470, and then to make it work, here's another 2 to 3 grand or 5 grand or whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting metric to show to a seller to say, okay, here's our offers, but they have basements and ceilings on them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you've got that guarantee on the appraisal difference in case that happens. It could get really complicated, really hard, really hard.
It can.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
It's a different kind of purchase agreement now. It really isn't the same things that we used to worry and negotiate about before. That's like 2019 and 20 was completely different. It's interesting. Hopefully, this is, it's fun for sellers. Yeah, we're gaining momentum and we have more value in our homes. It's a challenge for a buyer. But everybody is asking me, is this a bubble? Because everybody's seeing very few sale signs, and then they come down quick, and then they hear what their neighbors sell for. Like you said in Richfield, getting 390. Holy cow, the whole neighborhood wants to go on the market now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And really the metrics are completely different than early 2000s in so many ways. But the only way that it is the same is prices are growing at double digits. That's where people are starting to get nervous.
Yep.
Back to your comment about inflation, there's no doubt we're on the heels of that. I mean, the money helicopter has been flying around, dropping money all over the world.
Yeah.
All over our country.
Yes.
And eventually we got to pay. So the next big metric will be moving into inflation and what that means for rates and a cost of all goods. Now that's going to be the cost of building a home too. I mean, that's going to bring up the cost of everything that builds a property. So.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in May, I follow this mortgage guru as far as pricing and trying to get your feel on historically where rates are going to go. And there's no one that can predict because anything can change overnight. But May is kind of a big moment because there's a year-over-year inflation index that gets reported.
Okay.
And it looks like when we hit May, it could be moving from 1.5 to 2.5. And if that happens, there could be a spike in rates in May. Again, that can be predicted, and yet it doesn't happen. Right. Now, the other thing that they're talking about is we could potentially see a recession in 2022 or 2023. And what's going to happen if that incurs, rates are going to drop. So you can really look at the next year to 2 years and be on a roller coaster of where rates may go and where they do actually go. Now, another interesting thing that happened last week, Thursday night, at about 10 o'clock, we got notice. Fannie Mae sent out a notice. They are risk-based pricing investment properties and second homes. They're raising rates because they only want 7% of their portfolio to be invested in second homes and investment properties.
Really?
So we've already seen, literally from last Friday to today, a fairly significant increase in rates, especially on investment properties. I want to share just some basic information with you. So I did a comparison on a 20% down non-owner single family property. So you're a first time investor, you're going to go out, you're going to buy your first investment property, you've got 20% down. About 3 weeks ago, a 30-year fixed rate was 3.375.
Okay.
Today it's 4.125.
Okay.
If you want to get into a better rate environment, you've got to put down 25%. Okay. That gets you to about 3.5%. So Investment properties, probably not only did rates go up, but then there's an automatic adjustment to that as well. Second homes are hanging in there. They're at about 3 1/8
Okay.
for a single family with 20% down. You could do 10% down, whereas the current mortgage rate is about 3% on owner occupied.
Hmm.
So these again are changes that Fannie
Yeah.
Mae is getting. They're doing some risk-based pricing, and I
Hmm.
don't know if it's because they're a little concerned about having too much of those properties in their portfolio, and there's concern down the road on risk, but they are
Hmm.
risk-basing and bumping up those rates a little bit.
Hmm.
So that again is something to really keep your eyes on.
Right.
Now, one advantage in why you want to work with a company like Alaris,
Hmm.
we're mortgage bankers. We
Hmm.
have our own internal product, but 99% of the time we're going to shop our clients to about 20 different investors, banks, lenders.
Yep.
They're all competing for my business. And so I've got a lender today that's given me the lowest price, whereas many of the others have adjusted.
Hmm.
So if you're only working with your local bank, you're only getting what that bank's tolerance is for
Yeah.
rates. So working with a mortgage banker gives you many different options. It allows me to shop your mortgage. My number one job is to find you the best terms. But the advantage with a banker instead of a mortgage broker, we do the underwriting, we provide the funds for closing, we're in total control. As you know, when we say we're going to close a transaction, we're going to close it.
Right. There was, oh gosh, when those people get involved with lenders that have processors on the East Coast and the underwriters on the West Coast, and
Yeah.
it is so terrifying, the lack of control in a contract, and very uneasy for all parties.
Okay.
Us agents try to keep everything on the down low, but at a certain point when things start getting out of hand, or things are going to get delayed, all parties need to be notified, and that's when things get a little crazy. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Alaris, you guys, it's all it's all under one shell, and believe me, that goes a far, far way.
The
Yeah.
interesting thing in a transaction is that a lot of people in that transaction sometimes forget. Once the file's handed over to the lender, it's their show. They
Yeah.
call all the shots. I've been in transactions where participants have said, well, we don't do it that way. And it's like the lenders call the shots. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac make up all the rules. We all follow them. And there's no magic bullet. It's just your ability to be quick, communicate well, provide the lowest rates you can.
Right.
But it's a big deal.
Right. And I think the biggest thing in this market is providing just clarity for a buyer to know what could happen. Like you said, rates are here, but I'm really seeing this move between here and here, so people
Yes.
can have an expectation of
Yeah,
what's to come, right? So
absolutely.
as
Yeah.
as best we can, right?
Well, you and I, our top goal is that when our clients get to the closing table, they're
Mhm.
so excited. It's
Yeah.
been such a smooth, hassle-free, stress-free transaction
Right.
because, we want to make sure that that first experience or the second experience is
Hmm.
the best thing they've ever had.
Yeah.
And for us, for you and I, it's as exciting for us each time as it is when people are buying their first house.
Right. Right. No, it's a good thing when everybody's happy at the closing table, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when everybody's smiling. Well, this was such a great update, because I think we had a live maybe 4 or 6 weeks ago that talked about interest rates and the very little difference between an owner occupied, a second home, and a
Yes.
vacation home, or whatever you want to call it, and then an
Yeah.
investment home. The difference in rate was not even something to report on. And
Yeah.
now there's a difference. So that is really important for people to know out there that are thinking about investing or in getting into that second home. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is an awesome update, Brian. Thanks so much. I'm happy we got connected and reconnected after
Yes.
we broke. That was fun. So it's
Yeah.
COVID, so it's okay. Things happen.
Yes. Well, you know what? By Friday, I think all the snow is going to be gone. We'll be
Yep.
back into spring. Life
Yep.
is good.
Life is good again. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you always for your time, my friend, and we'll talk soon. If anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about their specific needs in this real estate market and how Brian and I can help get you to the closing table with a smile on your face,
Yes.
please let me know in the details below. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.